Hi guys, welcome back to the channel. So I just finished watching The Polygamist on Netflix. It's a Netflix series that is adapted from a book by an African author, Sue Nyanthai. I hope I said that correctly because I want to credit her because the if the book is anything like the series, it's excellent. It was excellent storytelling, right? And while a lot of persons are focused on the character Jonas, I could not help but focus on the women, right? Not to judge them, but because their stories reveal lessons that so many of us as women learn the hard way. All right. And so this conversation is not at all a review of the series. It is more so lessons that we can extract as women from that Netflix series. Okay. And by extension, the book. And so sit with me for a few minutes until the end so we can unpack these lessons, because I want you to tell me at the end which one of these lessons really resonated with you, or are there any lessons that you think that women should have learned from this Netflix series. So these are the 5 biggest lessons that I took away. Firstly, Essie's lesson. Never build a man while neglecting yourself. It kind of starts out with her, right? So we see there's young Jonas. They have this beautiful relationship. You know, they live in the slums. They could relate to each other. She saves Jonas on many occasions from being, I guess, taken advantage of and all the things, right? And so one day she and Jonas is just sitting down, laying down, and Jonas is talking about, how he can't go to university because his mom, those don't have the money and all like that, and his daddy's a drunkard and just all the things, right? And then Essie decides that, okay, Jonas, this is my life savings, right? This is all the money that I've been saving up from hustling and, doing my thing, using my talents to bring value. And then me having this, all of her resources, because keep in mind, they're both from like the kind of slummish part of their parish. And so basically they're on the same level. And she's saying to Jonas, well, I hear you. You have so much potential. And so I want to be able to pour into you, because I believe that you're going to make sure, that you're going to make it, and then you're going to come back, and save me, basically. And so that is one of the first lessons I felt that, women need to caution themselves with, to never fall in love with potential so much that you neglect yourself, right? So Essie learned that the hard way, because we could see that Jonas did go, he did keep in contact with her. And then she discovered that, okay, it's been 8 years, haven't seen or heard from Jonas. Then all of a sudden she sees Jonas pop up married. He popped out married. And then after a while he came back, and she accepted him with open arms. And then we see how that kind of unfolds, where all the things that she accepted, and her value system and her boundaries, as they dropped, Jonas didn't really have to rise to any occasion. So we saw how that went. And so the first lesson that I got from the series was that you never build a man while neglecting your own dreams. Don't get me wrong. There's nothing wrong with supporting your partner. But I think one of the biggest mistakes women make is believing that helping a man build his life guarantees a place in it. We see where Essie, had to play second fiddle her entire life. And she resented, that position so much. But the reality is really what she created, And so support does not guarantee loyalty. Sacrifice does not guarantee commitment. Investment does not guarantee reciprocity. And so Build with a man if you choose, but never stop building yourself. As we say in the Bahamas, don't fatten up the frog for the snake. Then lesson number 2 was Joyce's character, right? Now there's so many lessons to learn from Joyce. And I'm only laughing because I'm laughing now, but trust me, watching this series was so triggering, almost like when you watch those old slave movies and you're like, I don't like this, but you're watching it anyway. Yeah, that was what this series was for me. So lesson number 2, Joyce's lesson. And I just wrote down some notes just to stay grounded, right? Marriage does not change character. I know a lot of times, especially we as women who have been kind of groomed, a lot of us were like groomed for marriage by the time as we were, yay high, right? Where we dream of that day when we wear our red dress and, the man that is the man of our dreams. We're going to run off into the sunset and live happily ever after, right? But I think in the modern times, especially, we have to understand that, like Joyce, right? Joyce had the marriage, she had the children, she had that big, beautiful house. Wasn't that a big, beautiful house? Oh my goodness, all the things. There was nothing that Joyce and Jonas did not lack. They literally had everything, and they were well respected and had power. And Joyce was really bougie. All the things, right? She had the years invested, yet none of those things changed who Jonas fundamentally was. No matter what, Jonas was just a low down, broken, very narcissistic. He had this insatiable kind of thirst for, he collected those women like Pokemons, right? And I don't even think it was so much about the intimacy of it. I just think he was just, Jonas was something else. But remember I said this is not about Jonas, right? This is about the women, right? And so I think that a lesson that many women need to hear is that a ring does not create integrity. A ring does not create integrity, right? Marriage magnifies character. It does not manufacture it. If someone lacks accountability before marriage, they will lack accountability after marriage. If someone lies before marriage, then they will likely lie after marriage. Never let a title override the truth. Character first, always, right? A lot of times, we think as women that, okay, once I'm chosen to be married, because Jonas chose Joyce, right? Some women think that just because I was chosen to be married, that, like I like to say, they're going to run off into the sunset and life is going to be perfect. It can be, if you could have a good quality of life with a man that has character, right? That is yes is yes and is no. And so never think that, because you have a ring that, a man is just going to suddenly change, right? And then thirdly, Matipa's lesson was being chosen is not the same as being valued. Now, let's keep in mind that Matipa had the body. My girl body was bodying, okay? She was absolutely gorgeous. I would give Matipa a 10 out of 10. She had the femininity. She had the body. She had, that kind of seductress vibe going on. She was educated. Matipa lacked nothing. So Matipa was beautiful. She was desired. She was attractive. And yet none of those things protected her from disappointment. Beauty gets attention. Character keeps it. One of the biggest mistakes women make is confusing being wanted with being valued. Those are not the same things, right? Never confuse attention with commitment. And a lot of times we think as women that, because, in today's world, everybody has, the thing that we're born with that is so special, all kind of names for it, the good. And then sometimes, when a man, you feel like a man, feel like a man chooses us, especially if he is involved where he has another life with a wife. A lot of women feel as if, okay, his wife is like this old hag and she's this and she's that, and they're not getting along, and they tell these lies to themselves while the man is still living, with his wife. They tell themselves these things because they're younger, more vibrant, probably don't have any kids, and they're on call and all the things, even being a 10 out of 10, gorgeous. But I think women need to learn that is something that is not sustainable, right? You could be a fun girl for a very, very long time. And then there's going to come a time where, you could be replaced. And that is exactly what happened with Matipa, right? So we must never, ever make the mistake of confusing being wanted with being valued, right? You could be wanted today, and a man, is not going to value anything about you. We see it with Matipa, where even when she thought she had the children, that was going to make Jonas, kind of respect her more and, be with her instead of Joyce. Baby, it was just recreated, okay? And she was just disrespected after a while, where she started to chase Jonas. And so it's a lesson to be learned that, honestly and truly, we must never confuse being chosen with being valued. Never confuse chemistry with character. In most of the cases, I would say, stop thinking that you're special, right? These things have been happening from the beginning of time, right? They're only recreated. This book it is fiction, but it is inspired by things that the author saw, men that are pretend to be monogamous by the world's lens, but then they're living like these lives, these double and triple and, lives. And so this book just brings kind of like awareness to the things that have always been happening. So a lesson to learn is that, we don't have to touch the fire to know that it's hot. Right? Women would have already discovered these things. And so, yeah, Matipa's lesson is one that I think a lot of young girls could really extract that lesson from. Like, don't get caught up, don't get caught up whereas you think that you're better than the other woman. If he did it to her, you're next. And then the fourth lesson is Lindani's lesson, which is not every opportunity should be taken. So as we can see, Lindani is young, she's fresh, she's vibrant, she's like of school age, because she was actually Jonas's daughter's friend. She would always come over to the house. They practically grew her up. Her parents were kind of poor. And so when Jonas advanced, toward her, she kind of took the opportunity with the fine dining. And, like she told Jonas's son, I love a man with power and resources, right? And so when Jonas, sexually advanced, her, she took him up on his offer, went to Cape Town, got introduced to the lifestyle and all the things. And so all of her morals and everything just went right out of the door, right? She wanted a better life. She wanted better opportunities. She wanted an escape from her circumstances. And along came a wealthy man, right, with resources. But one thing that this teaches us is that not every opportunity is an opportunity. Sometimes it's a trap, right? And sometimes what looks like provision comes with a heavy price tag, because we know what happened to Lindani. She got a sickness. She had a miscarriage because of the sickness, right? And so she was desperate, right? And so sometimes what looks like provision comes with like a heavy price tag. When we are vulnerable financially, emotionally, or mentally, we can be tempted to accept things we normally wouldn't. Because at first we could see like Lindani was scared out of her mind when that man tried to like come on to her. Because as far as she's concerned, like, this is my friend's dad, right? But then Lindani had no resources. That girl wanted to go off to school, right? And she was working as a waitress, and yeah, he took advantage of that. And then she entertained him because why? She did not have the resources, and now this powerful man is giving her attention because she's young, she's youthful. But I think she didn't realize that he just wanted to extract what the feminine had to offer. He's been doing this for such a long time. And so she finally got her lesson also. And what happened? Jonas ended up getting HIV. We still don't know if she got it, but yeah, again, it's not a review of the actual series. It's just the lessons that can be absorbed, where women can apply this to their lives, right? So we see that Jonas was just a promiscuous man, and to that young girl, right? She's the last woman that was victim to him. We see that she just may have gotten the worst consequence of them all, because yeah, sister girl was exposed to HIV, and as young and as beautiful as she was, the reality is it just didn't play out for her, right? What did she get out of that connection to that man? He got what he wanted, because my guy would wine and dine you and do all the things, provide for you. But what is money to someone who has it? He had the resources, so that was like no kind of, that didn't even touch his pocket, providing for women. They wanted money. He wanted what the feminine had to offer. When he's done with them, he discards them. But what are they left with, So you have to make sure that things are a trade-off. And you have good intentions if they want to like hide you and, just have smacks, you can't say the real thing on these things all the time. Like how is that sustainable, right? But in your youthfulness, your brain is not fully developed, so she had no way of understanding that you will be replaced, right? You will be replaced, and you're just part of the collection. So I think Lendani's lesson is to understand that not every opportunity should be taken. She should have just not engage Jonas. And then lastly, lesson number 5 was children learn what they live. And we go on an emotional roller coaster with the children from the beginning of the story straight down to the end, right? And perhaps the saddest lesson in the story wasn't even about the adults, and it was about the children. Sarah saw everything. She had to actually practically lie about her whole life, right? Joyce's children saw everything, and the children were always watching, right? And one of the key parts in the story was when his daughter, the one that he had with Joyce, asked Matipa at one point when she came to the house looking for Jonas in desperation. She said, "What is it about this man that makes you women disrespect yourself so?" And I was like, look, yes, what is it? What is it? That is a powerful question, because they kept disrespecting themselves. At one point, Joyce was holding on to his leg so he wouldn't go over to the sweetheart's house. And then he beaten them, and they're coming back and all the things. And it was a valid question, but I felt so bad for the daughter, for his eldest daughter, because it was like she is to the point where she's trying to understand, like, why is her mom dealing with this? These were all beautiful women, and Joyce was educated as well as Matipa, right? And also Essie. Essie was, she had her resources and different things like that. She was resourceful with her hands. And then Lendani, she was college bound as well. And they were all beautiful. And we're trying to understand, as the viewers and as the daughter stated, why are you doing this to yourself? These things are a choice, right? And so the children were watching, and while they're watching, their self-esteem is being built. Their inner world is being built. Their perception of marriage is being built. Their perception of themselves is being built. So that was one of the greatest tragedies, I feel, of this storyline, right? That children learn what they live, right? They learn what love look like. They learn what respect look like. They learn what treatment is acceptable. Children don't just hear what we say. They watch what we tolerate. And that is one of the biggest takeaways that was really in this show, because we could watch how even the son slowly turned into his dad. Slowly, it compounds over time, right? And often the relationships we normalize become the relationships they later recognize as familiar. Unconsciously, children recreate what they grew up in, right? And this is why healing matters most. This is why boundaries matter. This is why self-respect matters, because our choices don't only affect us, it affects our children. And so I just want us as women, right? If you are an older woman watching this, or you are a younger woman, I want us to take lessons from, the series. It isn't just a show that was entertaining. These are real life circumstances that is extracted from Africa. We're in the Western world, but we could see themes, right, that still apply here. All right. So that was one question in the series that stayed with me. Why are you allowing this man to cause you to disrespect yourself so, right? And so the biggest takeaway I would say from The Polygamist is going to be for us as women to watch the character of the men that we decide to put ourselves with, right? Not the chemistry. Remember back in my previous video, I talked about Tina Turner's takes on this. Don't confuse that with the touch of your hand, right? That the touch of your hand makes my pulse react. It's only the thrill of boy meeting girl, opposites attract. It's physical, only logical, right? So we cannot mistake that chemistry, that hot love, as my mommy calls it, sometimes even puppy love, right? Never confuse chemistry with intention, right? Also, not to just solely move on promises, and to watch out for character. And lastly, in conclusion, I would say that question that Sarah asks Matipa is going to be the thing that is going to sum up the show for me. What is it about that man that makes you beautiful women disrespect yourself so? And I think the answer for that was basically emotional attachment, right? Attachment to hope, attachment to history, attachment to marriage, attachment to potential, attachment to what they wanted him to be rather than who he consistently showed them he was. So we cannot mistake that chemistry, that hot love, as my mommy calls it, sometimes even puppy love, right? Never confuse chemistry with intention. Watch the character of the men that we decide to put ourselves with, right? Because the longer we ignore red flags, the more expensive the lessons become. And perhaps the greatest act of self-love is choosing yourself before the lies force you to. And so I just want to tell all of the ladies that have made it to the end to choose yourself sooner, right? Choose yourself sooner, and to understand, if you are going to engage, right, in any kind of relationship with a man, it should add to your life, not take away, not make you want to, commit like Joyce, right? Not wasting, decades of your life like Essie, right? Not trying to be hopeful like Matiba, using your looks to think that you're going to keep a man, right? And definitely not trying to use a man as opportunity. You're going to be disappointed every time. A man is not an escape plan. And we need to understand that. Build yourself, ladies. Build yourself. Build your skill set. Do what it takes for you to be responsible for your success. Nobody could take that away from you. Some lessons are very, very expensive. And I want you to live an abundant life with all the good things. And you don't need anybody outside of yourself to do that. You're capable, right? You're capable and you're able. So I want you to let me know which one of these lessons really resonated with you. And if you haven't watched it as yet, run, don't walk. Run. Disclaimer, it is a bit triggering, but I think it's a movie that every woman should watch. So thank you for sitting with me, guys, and I look forward to your answers in the comments. Bye for now.